Thank you very much, everyone. Good evening. You're welcome to the Civic Media Lab Anti-corruption Townhall series, where we talk about issues relating to corruption in Nigeria and the fight for accountability and transparency. This townhall is a monthly series where we talk about issues around corruption in Nigeria. The program focuses on programs and impact organizations have made in the continuous efforts to push the frontiers for good governance. We have with us today our partners from Accountability Lab, and they will be joining us to dissect the theme for this program, which is the role of citizens in fighting corruption. I have with us Mr. Ibrahim, Comrade Ibrahim Kirifi. He works with the Corporate Affairs Commission in Yola. We have Mr. Menga Shiwa, who's a project officer or program officer with the Accountability Lab. And we have Mr. Friday Ode, who is the director of Accountability Lab. Thank you very much for joining us. Without wasting much of our time, let's just get into the real business of the day. So I would like us to start with talking about, everybody knows what corruption is. Everybody knows how it plays out in our respective environments. But I would like us to talk about the how and the why. Why do we have these kind of issues going on and nothing seems to be done? Nothing seems to be able to shift as we continue to fight. It just seems like it becomes more difficult. So I'll start with Comrade Ibrahim Kirifi. What do you think are the precipitating factors for corruption in our society?
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. As you rightly said, I'm Comrade Ibrahim Kirifi, opted Chairman, Corporate Affairs Commission, but currently in Yola office. Corruption is something that is somehow endemic in our system, which demands a serious appraisal and reappraisal if you actually want to limit the impact of corruption in the system. The reason why it is defying solution, I want to go straight to the point, is because they have not been so, the government has not been sincere in its approach towards fighting the corruption. There's no sincerity in the system because people tend to continue doing something when there's no any punishment method on people that commit offense. Why people used to keep indulging in corrupt activities is because when they participate in corrupt activities, they know at the end of the day, nothing will happen to them, or they will know how they settle themselves. They settle the people that are supposed to be monitoring their activities, or people that are supposed to enforce the laws on them. They know they will settle them. So it is because of inability of government to punish offenders, to apprehend, identify, apprehend, and punish offenders as at when due. These are the key factors that make people to continue indulging in them, because when people are indulging in something and there's no profit in it, they will not continue doing it. But they see it as a very profitable business because it is even something that some people are even proud of. You see people indulging in massive corruption. People that you think maybe capital punishment may be meted against them. But at the end of the day, you see them walking tall in the streets, receiving titles, honorary doctorates from university, receiving chieftaincy title, and people will be commending them without questioning the source of their wealth. So unless these issues are being faced squarely, seriously, with sincerity by the government and the general public, mark you, the government cannot do it alone.
Yeah.
The general public has a role to play in fighting corruption. I think we're going to get to that gradually as we move.
Yeah. Thank you very much. You've mentioned the lack of punitive measures for those that have been caught as a deterrent. I'll come to you, Mr. Shiwa. do you have a different opinion to what Comrade Kirifi has said?
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Habib. I cannot agree less with Mr. Kirifi over his opinion as to why corruption is endemic in the system. And for the point of emphasis, let me say here that it is actually correct to say that we have an endemic corruption in our Nigerian system, because if you look at it in every aspect of governance, you find that there are a lot of things going on wrong. And so I may want to conceive corruption simply as disorderliness when we don't do things correctly. And if we want to view it from this angle, we see to it that in all tiers of government, from federal to the local government, you see that we have a lot of things that are not done properly. If you look at it in terms of various agencies of government across various tiers, you also accept that we have a lot of abnormal things happening. And then you also agree that when you look at the patronage coming from the private sector, we also see that a lot of ugly things are happening. So there is no gainsay that corruption is endemic. Having said that, Mr. Ibrahim has mentioned a number of issues. Impunity is one, and I want to blame it again on the society itself. We have come to a point where we worship people who have money, not minding where this money is coming from. Just like he said, they take titles and honorary degrees and all of that, and nobody cared to know why and where they get these monies from. Again, we see a culture of gratification. So to a large extent, when one is trying to get a service from a government agency, it just feels that it is right to get the official. Whichever way they want to look at it is a bribe, but that is the language. And I think it's also an odd one. And so if you look at the lot of things, the lack of political will to even enforce some of the rules and laws that are in place to ensure that corrupt practices are minimized. You also understand that these laws are not properly applied or selectively applied. And finally, you also look at it from the point of the failure of responsible government agencies who are bestowed with the responsibility of fighting corruption. You also notice that their efforts are inadequate. They lack, maybe in a way, they lack the capacity, or they're not so committed to doing those things that will actually bring to book those persons that are suspected to be corrupt practices. And finally, the issue of selective application of the application of laws against corruption. I think these are a lot of issues, or a couple of issues that add up to make corruption endemic in the Nigerian system.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Shiwa. I'll come to you now, Mr. Ode. I'd like to shift the question a little bit. How would you say that this endemic corruption has cost us as a country? I'd like you to talk about that.
Thank you very much, Habib, for that. I was just thinking in the line of what they have already said, but I think for me, it's quite deep. So if you go by the foundation or the basis of what corruption means, it's more around using public resources for private gain. It might be the widely accepted definition, while other people have other definitions, but when you look at that in the context of Nigeria, you find out, like Nenga has mentioned, and Ibrahim as well, you find out we can't draw the line between governance and politics. So people go into government with the idea of playing politics rather than governing the people, which gives them that leverage. One of the things Nenga mentioned is the anti-corruption agencies. We're not sure if the corruption fight is adequate or the capacity, but once you look at that, people get into the space, and the priority for them is not to govern the people, but also to play politics at a higher level, where they also use public funds for personal gains to either send their children abroad. Just a couple of days, I was thinking about how does a public servant afford to train their child in Canada or US? Does their salary accommodate that? If their salary accommodates that, what kind of businesses do they do? Or what are they into? So once you look at all of that, I don't know if it justifies what they earn as a public servant, but it takes you back to what they do around public funds for private gain. This affects me and you, the general populace, the citizens, when you look at the fact that we are not able to get access to good healthcare. We're not able to get access to quality education. Those are two priorities which you see around the country at the moment. Now you talk about doing the right thing in office. These are all the things that play out when you see that government officials or appointed officials or people in power are supposed to be doing the right thing. And going back to what you said is more like, for me, I just feel like we need people who will do the right thing and ensure, like, once they get into power, to do the right thing to ensure we have the dividends of democracy or the dividends of governance, which is good education, which is quality healthcare and all of that, getting access to the right things that we desire. That will, in other words, for me, would be like managing and making public funds serve the people rather than serve their personal interests. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would also stay with you. I want you to take a closer look at the role of the citizens in all of this. How do they function in this endemic corruption and in ways in curbing it?
So for me, I think citizens, one of the things we do at Accountability Lab is we engage with responsible leaders and active citizens. For me, I think it's a process from democracy in 1999 to date. I think Nigeria has struggled to engage citizens actively in their participation in governance processes or democratic processes. We've seen in recent times where citizens are disenfranchised from their constitutional guaranteed rights in order to participate in governance processes, which makes them active. But the system, in other words, is either finding a way to discourage you in terms of voters' apathy, the insecurity, all the challenges we face, which has caused a problem in the society. But nevertheless, personally, I always see to the fact that if I'm speaking to Nenga or Mr. Ibrahim, or I do my own bit to say you need to participate in government processes or governance. It doesn't, we all will have opportunities. I probably have opportunities to go to Canada. Permit me to use the word Canada. That doesn't, I don't know if it changes the fact that I'm having a second generation, or Mr. Ibrahim has his children in Nigeria who will also suffer the brunt. So we have to do our own bit to engage with citizens to ensure everybody speaks out when the time is right. If even the time is not right, you need to even speak out and engage. You need to sit with government to discuss so governance can work for all of us, not just for a few who are beneficiaries from the ruling party or those in power. But how do we ensure, for me, I think it's about encouraging every young person. I don't want to put any age grade to that, but every Nigerian citizen, for me, I think, should find a way to participate, not just in elections, but also to engage with government. There's the Freedom of Information Act, which is there if you want to
is timely. I really don't know how many Nigerians, especially young Nigerians, we get to listen to this opinion I'm going to share. But I think fundamentally, Nigerians need a shift, a mental shift. And this is the point. If you go through the pedigree of our last general elections, you understand that there has been controversies surrounding the output of these elections, where people come out or citizens comes out to tell you that we voted and the results we see are not an expression of what we casted or the votes we casted. And this has actually made many Nigerians to become apathetic to the electioneering and voting process. And I think this is a mental mind shift that I want Nigerians to first and foremost undertake. For the fact that previously maybe our votes have not counted or were not counted and we're not able to express our will, does not mean that we should now jettison the electoral processes happening. That is one. Number two, the moment that mind shift is achieved, the next thing is that now the voter registration is going on and every Nigerian should go out there and get their permanent voter's card or whatever it is called, because this is the only instrument they have to determine who actually governs them. Then the third point would be as many Nigerians as possible should be able to join political parties. We have gone to a point where people look at the two evils and which one to choose from. We have had PDP in the past. At the moment we are talking about APC, PDP is struggling to come back. And many Nigerians seem to see the Nigerian political system as resting on either APC or PDP. I think this is a far cry from the reality. And so my third point of suggestion would be that Nigerians should go into politics, choose political parties of their choice, and then align their values to them and vote them with a view to ensuring that at the end of the day, we vote people that are credible, people that we can hold accountable, people that we can assess, and people that we can pressure to do things that are correct. And finally, why taking sides with political parties and voting, we must find a way to defend our votes. I'm not saying that we should do this violently, but vote and ensure that your vote are counted and you have a system of reporting it. I think the political parties themselves can weave this into their monitoring processes. And at the end of the day, we can be able to find tallies between the results that were collected by political parties versus what the INEC is bringing up. I think it's high time using the internet system, the mechanism that internet has provided for generation and for good. We can be able to use this to track and actually to either affirm or disagree with the results that INEC will be turning out. So this is the time, a stitch in time, I think saves time. And there is no better time for Nigerians to begin to imbibe a few of these things I just mentioned.
Thank you very much. So one of the things you said is for people to join political parties, but the big issue with that is the fact that you have to deal with the multitude as an individual with a small number versus a larger number. I'll come to you, Comrade Ibrahim. You are in the public service and you are a standout person in the public service. How do we judging by your experience, how do you fight the multitude? How do you stand out? How do you make sure that your values are spreads across board?
Pardon?
Yeah. Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay, yes. So I'm asking that as an individual in the public sector, how do you make sure, how do you face a multitude when it is like a you against the others situation? How do you stand out? How do you uphold your values and make sure that it spreads across everyone?
So honestly, this is a very relevant question with regard to our activities as public workers. The main thing is that, you know, some people are saying if you can't beat them, join them, which I don't believe. When you stand firm to do the right thing at the right time and in the right manner, there are always consequences. The public service, I can say public service and the civil service, they've been there's serious rotting in the system. The thing is that by the time you stand firm to defend to do the right thing, all those that find pleasure in doing the wrong thing will rally around and make you an enemy. And the issue is that even from your superior officers, if they direct you to do something wrong, you try to show them this is wrong, this is how it should be done right. They will say you want to show them you know. So these are the peculiar practical challenges workers find themselves in. And there's a way, but the problem is that you do your effort, but at the end of the day, you find your struggle being scuttled by those in the very system you're trying to make good.
Yeah. How do you cope with that?
You cope with that is, first, you have to devise a means through which you strike a balance. As you try to do the right thing, make sure you read a lot. Because even when somebody wants to compel you to do something, when you approach him with statistics, with figures, with superior argument, he may find no alternative than to accept your own position. He may hold grudge against you. But when he sees the power of your own argument, statistics, the figures you are using, relevant government circulars. Honestly, as a comrade, we do a lot of research. Virtually every circular that relates to issue of our welfare, we do have them, we keep them at the time, because we know time will come that we will need them. So by the time you are pushing issues that pertains to your members, you make sure you attach relevant government circulars or relevant section of the public service rule or your condition of service or act or any act that pertains to maybe Fiscal Responsibility Act or financial regulation. Because if you do that, you document it. By the time you document it, any officer that wants to commit illegality is afraid of documentation, because it's a record. By the time they come, if he wants to compel you to do something, you say, okay, sir, please minute it to me. Direct me to it in writing. I will easily do it now. He will be afraid, because when the chips are down, your only difference will be that minute that you work under directive. And as a subordinate officer, when you are directed to do something, you comply. But when the chips are done, you show your defense. I decided to follow directive by my superior officer, and this is why he directed me. Because when the chips are done, they deny you. They claim they never directed you to do something that is wrong. If you are very good in keeping records, in documentation, in very abreast with federal government, external federal government policies and circulars, you have nothing to do but to allow you to do the right thing.
All right. Thank you very much. So I'll come back to you, Mr. Ode. So let's talk about the Accountability Lab and some of the projects you have undertaken in the past few years. Could you just take us through some of them? I know, like, I would like you to talk specifically about the integrity icons, but you can just like give an overview of projects that you've been involved in.
Thank you very much, Habib. We at the Accountability Lab, we are a translocal network consisting of different labs across the world, from Mali to Nepal to Pakistan to South Africa and a couple of other countries, sharing similar vision around making governance work for citizens across these countries we operate in. And we do this by engaging active citizens, responsible leaders, and accountable institutions. One key program for us around our Accountability Lab campaign is the Integrity Icon, which looks around shifting norms and addressing behaviors to say more like behavioral change in our society. Hence our love, let me use the word, our love for Comrade Ibrahim and his work. These are people who have also not just inspired us as an organization, but also inspired me in person, because one of the things that drives me is, like we all know, the country is already full with lack of accountability in government spaces, in the society, having negative social norms, doing things the wrong way. But yes, we have people who are doing the right thing, which just gives me in person hope that we can still change the society and do what we want, and be a country that we want to be. The integrity icon in its essence looks to bring about positive conversation, build positive narratives, and also have to name and fame. We like the word name and fame compared to name and shaming, but for me, it's about celebrating these people who are doing the right thing in public spaces and ensuring like we bring them as the trendsetter or role models for other public servants, to ensure like you and I get the service we ought to get, quality service delivery in public service. With doing all of this, for me at Accountability Lab with my team as well, we look at how we can build a network of honest government officials. In 2017, when we started this, it was quite challenging because there was already a conversation or a negative impression when you get into public spaces. I'm sure Comrade Ibrahim must have experienced such with his organization, where you feel like you don't have public servants doing the right thing here. All of us are the same, but how do we begin to change this narrative with persons like Comrade Ibrahim, with persons like Dr. Yemi Kale, Dr. Musa, and a whole lot of others who we are working with at Accountability Lab to ensure these conversations change and we have a positive norm, social norm in our society. I probably want to say one or two experiences when we have some of us who have traveled out we are not saying corrupt practices don't exist in those society, but we are saying when you get into a public space, the first thing in engaging with a public servant is another conversation saying taxpayers' money, but it's one thing to say, I want to be attended to like a Nigerian citizen. So I believe like you are working for my own purpose. That helps us ensure that we have a society that works or governance that works for all of us. I think Nenga will share some other insights from that, but I'll probably just jump on to another campaign we have that ensures participation of young people in governance processes is the Voice to Rep. Voice to Rep is a music campaign which we run for young music artists to ensure they use their voice to educate their audience and their peers to get the right information to participate in government processes. We found out like a couple of young people they seem disinterested in political events. Take for instance, 2015 election, 2019, and 2023 election is coming. We're already experiencing, I just saw a statistics that shows 2019 had the lowest turnout for lowest turnouts for voters turnout. We're not sure what will happen in 2023. But by so doing with young people like this who are already interested in the likes of social media, music, and other form of arts, we are thinking of that using Voice to Rep as a tool to engaging them in these processes so they can participate and be a part of government. One quote by Dr. Joe says, you can be disinterested in politics or not in governance. So we need people to participate so governance can work for all of us. So we are using music as a tool to ensuring participation, equality, and accountability through young music artists. We also have another knowledge build program, which is the Accountability Lab knowledge program, more around Integrity Innovation Lab and SDG 16 Innovation Lab, trying to build young people's knowledge and share ideas on innovative ideas around what can build accountability in our society. Then we have what we call Accountability Lab communities, where we try to influence policies and processes through our Civic Action Team project and being a part of the Open Government Partnership process, where we co-create ideas and solutions with the private sector organizations, with the government, and with civil society organizations on one table, trying to find solutions to our problems. But yes, I'm happy to have Nenga jump in.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Nenga, I'll just come to you straight. You want to take it off from where you stop. Please kindly unmute.
My apologies. So actually at Accountability Lab, just like Mr. Ode mentioned, our mission is to see how we can support active citizens and then responsible institutions. Of course, in doing this, we have been able to have a lot of networks, and maybe I will look at it from the impact perspective. In the last 5 years, we'll be able to have about 23 icons cutting across various ministries and agencies of government, from the police to health, to security, to justice and judiciary, to agriculture and all of that. And then we have some of them coming from states from various levels and all of that. So to us, it has been an effort to build a network of new crops of Nigeria, not new crops in the sense of their ages, but in the sense of their commitment towards transparency and accountability and service delivery in the Nigerian public service. And this to us has been working. Over the years, we have had some of these icons who are already mentoring a new set of persons. We have people who are modeling their lives after them. They are trying to change norms in their offices. We have an icon in a university who is currently serving as a HOD, and he has been able to change the narratives around the PG program in that department. These are the kind of things we are looking at. We have an NYSC official who is already building a network of what I want to call disciples, a set of young Nigerians who sees him as a model and who try to imbibe his principles and work ethics. So to us, it has been a journey of looking out for and supporting these Nigerians who have a sense of pride in integrity, who have a sense of doing things transparently. And this has been working so fine for the time being, because we're also doing this in conjunction with government agencies, the EFCC, the head of service, the Bureau of Public Service Reform. So to us, not just taking a one-learn approach, but we're also trying to inculcate government or bring in government agencies into this. So we're working at the same pedestrian to understand our approaches, happy with the process, and are complementing our efforts towards building this network of persons with integrity. So basically, that is what we have been.
All right, thank you very much.
And these are the results we'll be able to achieve so far.
Thank you very much. You already answered some of the next questions I was going to ask. I wanted you to talk about some of the landmark achievements you've been able to achieve with these programs. Maybe I'll just come back to Mr. Ode. I know you've mentioned the fact that you're breeding a new crop of Nigerians in mentality, people who would learn to live right, who would not try to bend the rules or participate in corrupt practices and all of that. But are there bigger goals for you and for the organization? Are there other things you would like to achieve? Is it moving according to the pace you would like? Or would there be some sort of amplification that you're looking out for?
For me, thank you very much for that. Very insightful. One of the key things we are trying to push for at the lab is also to see how we can expand the space of governance to also reflect inclusive governance. What this means for me basically is, how do we ensure the space is open for young people to participate? Take, for instance, number one, we have the Not Too Young to Run Bill Act, rather, which is in law now, but you still have problems, or you still have hindrances to that law, which is lack of young people's participation or access to participating in political process. First of all, the Electoral Amendments Bill talks about, I'm not sure what the limit is, but it talks about the funding limit or campaign limits, which also disenfranchises young people. Once you get the form is one thing, once you want to do campaign is another thing. So automatically you have very slim chance in the end goal. Secondly is women's participation in politics as well. You see the National Assembly, I'm not even sure which of this, the National Assembly has less than 8 or less than 5% of female representation on the National Assembly. I think one of the states, I'm not sure which of them in particular in the southern part of Nigeria, and also in the northern parts, all has all male legislators at the State Assembly. So how do we begin to change all of this? For me, will be one of the biggest goals. The third for me on my list, from young people to women's participation in politics, to the third, which is persons with disabilities. accessibility in public spaces, and also accessibility in public spaces, and also employment rates due to the Disability Act, which has just been passed. The Disability Act makes mention of 5% allocation for employment for persons with disability in government institutions, but we don't see that happening. I think this is 2 or 3 years down the lane. That act is still struggling. But how do we begin to address all of this will be one of my, what are my key criteria or key goals for 2022, as the case may be. So like number 1, young people's participation in politics, women's participation in politics, and 3, accessibility for persons with disability, and 5% employment allocation to them.
All right, thank you very much. I would like to come back to you, Comrade Ibrahim. I want you to talk us through some citizen-based programs that you think can help amplify the fight against corruption, the fight for accountability. I'm being particular about citizen-based now, not on the government side, but what citizens can do. Maybe there are programs, maybe there are ideas that you think that can be developed to ensure that we have more upright citizens.
Yeah, there are a lot of things citizens can do. First is self-development, which is called capacity building.
Please, can you speak up? Your voice is a bit loud.
What I say is that there are a lot of things that citizens can do to ensure that they help in the fight against corruption in the country. For instance, there's what we call capacity building, self-development. Individuals can first try to develop themselves. Developing yourself means you are equipping yourself. There are things that people can do. For instance, one of the issues that we said helps in making corruption to be endemic in the system is because people are glorifying those who indulge in corrupt practices. Citizens can stop honoring them, can stop respecting them. Citizens can stigmatize corrupt public officials. When they are being stigmatized, anywhere they go, people are booing them. They will find no place to hide. That's one. And secondly, the citizen can equally compel other institutions to start doing the right thing. Institutions can be strengthened when citizens show them that, yes, it's time for the government, for like traditional institutions to stop, as I said earlier, to stop recognizing those who indulge in corrupt practices. This goes a long way in shaping the system. And thirdly, citizens can equally help, can equally do something by choosing the right candidates, right people, putting the right people in government positions. Choose the right people. Because one of the problems that the politicians or government are using to emasculate, to take charge of the control of the citizens is, there's what Claude called democracy of disempowerment. They disempower the masses by perpetrating poverty, inequality, a lot of issues, religious differences among the citizens, to cling to the position, the position of authority. Because politicians are using religion, they're using tribalism, they're using region and other sentiments when they want to get to the political positions. But at the time they succeed in getting those offices, they forget about the people. When they are stealing, when they are doing their activities, religion doesn't play a role. Ethnicity doesn't play a role. The region they come from doesn't play a role. There's unity of purpose in stealing. They use the same measures to divide people and so that they can get sovereignty in doing whatever they want. Citizens can decide to start rejecting advances or gifts at the point of election or electioneering campaign. Politicians have already had a plan whereby you see at the point of election, like now we are facing electioneering campaign. You see them buying stomach infrastructure, buying food to give to the people for them to vote them. You see them buying machines, buying something that will convince you that, yes, this person is with us, which is not ideal. People are selling their future. Citizens should stop should stop mortgaging their future in the hands of politicians. They should start reasoning, because when people start thinking right, when people start power themselves by capacity building, you get enlightened. People should start being abreast with what is happening in the society, become knowledgeable on policies and programs of the government. Then they can be able to now stand firm and defend themselves. And they can stand firm in influencing the decision of the government, because there's power and numerical strength of the people. When even government itself, when they see the citizens are against some policies of the government, they have no option than to dance to the tune of the people. For instance, if you can see like the NSAS protest, it was conceived by the masses, by the people. When they started seeing that things, government are doing things that are wrong, security agencies are overstepping their bounds. When people went out in mass, when they see the numerical sum of the people and the acceptability of the general masses in the country of the policy of the move, government had no option than to scrap SAS. So masses in citizens, they have a very, very vital role to play in fighting corruption, but they must withstand hardship. Because most of the time when citizens go out to fight on issues like that, go say, leave them. After so day, they will leave it. I could recall when we were on nationwide protest with regard to the subsidy removal, in 2012, when the whole of Nigerian masses, the citizens, they were on the street in 2012 with regard to that. Government had no option than to bring about subsidy, about the social safety nets. A lot of things were done that time. But where we have problem is at the point of implementation. That's where most of those policies have been rubbished. So when members, it is clearly true that when citizens stand firm on their position, and when they stand firm and want something to be done right, the government has no option than to do this in the right thing. In the right way.
Thank you. Thank you very much. One of the key things I picked from that is that the citizens need to develop themselves to be able to know what to do and how to do it. So we're looking at a situation of having active citizens who know what the laws are, who know what the policies are, who understands it and can interrogate it at different points in time. And also for citizens to be firm whenever they decide to act. And they decide to go en masse, they should be firm and be able to withstand the pressure from the government, as the case may be. Thank you very much for that. I'll come to you, Mr. Ode. So I remember 2019, we had a project with one of our partners on a project called Zabe, which is supposed to be like a parallel voting tabulation, like to get people from different polling booths to upload their own results from the polling unit. Immediately it is announced, you upload on the platform, and then it computes automatically on the app. And the reach was not strong, but we're still able to achieve like almost 97% computation. Are you in tune with some other ideas that we can actually develop ahead of the coming elections? Like based on the things you said about having a much more inclusive electioneering campaign that caters for women, that caters for people with disability and all of that. So I would like to pick your brain on like ideas that you have that can be amplified, that can be developed regarding that.
Thank you very much. Why it sounds like a very difficult question, like putting me on the spot, right? Well, yes, one of the things we try to do with our network of icons is similar to this. though they might not be in the space, but they also have networks which we think it would be great leveraging on and also engaging them. Just in recent times, we are planning for an event, the Integrity Icon Workshop, or I'm not even sure if it's a workshop or what, a conference. And for me, it's about working with people who do the right thing, and also how do we explore new frontiers or new grounds? Because once you find out, if I say I'm putting out something, you find out the same people come into the space. We circle the same beneficiaries, we circle the same people we engage in different states. So why don't we try something new by engaging the Persons with Disabilities Network? How do we plug them into the icons? How do we plug them to young music artists? So why I say young music artists as well is you find out there seems to be no consistency once you are engaging an A-list artist. So once you engage an A-list artist, you probably sustain that with funding or you chase them forever. But these young guys, these young music artists are also excited once you make them understand why they need to participate in government processes. So I'll give you an instance. When we had the first or second Voice to Rep, it's called Voice to Rep, Voice to Represent. We were in Lagos during a training when, after finishing the training and helping these participants or beneficiaries understand what it means to participate in democratic processes, they didn't even understand what it meant. Somebody said they didn't even know you have that power or you have that right to demand for information through the Freedom of Information Act. So once we start exploring these persons, it might give us another opportunity to reach in more people. That being said, for me, technology is another tool which is very useful. But the challenge for me will be, how do we now begin to, welcome, let me use this opportunity to even welcome Sheila. We participated in a conference on different years. I've forgotten the name of that conference, but it has to do with data and technology. And one of the things for me was, how do we begin to use low-cost tech tools? Because if you go to the rural areas, internet remains an issue. So once you develop a tool or develop a software or an application and you take it down to the community, it's quite difficult for them because, number one, some of them still operate on 2G. Number two, some of them might not have those smartphones or access to internet. But yes, SMS is another platform which we can also engage with and train them and give them that access to what it is. But with at Accountability Lab, we have the Civic Action Team project, which we are engaging young people through these processes at the community level. So we call them Community Frontline Associates, which is similar to community volunteers. We also engage on the other side, volunteers in terms of journalists who bridges the gap on, once this person gets direct information or first-hand information from their communities, it's easier to transmit to the journalists who, in other words, we amplify through their radio programs or whatever platform they are using. So for me, I think these platforms or these processes might be helpful in those electoral processes, in either transmission of results or engaging citizens at the grassroots level to ensure they are also part of government processes or democratic processes, or ensuring their voices are being heard and no one is left behind.
Thank you very much. I'll come to you, Mr. Shiwa. I would like you to talk about the Integrity Icons program once again. I would like you to talk about the quality of maybe past winners, past people that, I know there was a policeman, was it 2019 or early 2020? There was a policeman. How has this changed the perception of people based on the quality of the icons that you've recognized in the past?
Thank you so much. This question is a bit technical, so my answers will not be explicit in terms of what applies to a particular group of servers that work in a particular ministry. We're using that police officer as a point of illustration. Yeah. Basically, people are beginning to see things differently. For instance, if we pick CSP Francis Irabo for a discussion, people will tell you that, oh, this policeman is exceptional. There are video clips of people who spoke on his character, on his behavior, on his adherence to work ethics when we went to video him in 2020 and sorry, 2019. And these are testimonies of a police officer who is exceptional. Now, people come to understand that it is wrong to have a blanket assessment of the police force that the Nigerian police force is corrupt. It is better to look at it in terms of individual cases. And that is a plus, and that is the quality of the man we are talking about. We also have another man in Police Service Commission who even took his father to court when him and a few other persons decided to make injustice on a widow in his community. He has taken his officials, his superiors to court on several times. He won the case. At some points, he was dismissed, illegally dismissed, and brought back into service. So these are the quality of icons that Integrity Icon has produced over the years. We also have one of them speaking to us here on this program, Mr. Ibrahim Kirifi Musa, who has been very dogged in his fighting against illegal deductions from workers' salary, misappropriation of money in his place of work and all of that. So along the line, you get to see that when people assess Nigerian public service in terms of everybody is corrupt, the Integrity Icon is bringing to the fore the fact that we still have a whole lot of good Nigerians who are working in the public space, and they are committed towards changing the narrative. Apart from the fact that we name icons, for every year when we are going up for nomination, we receive hundreds and hundreds of nominations. For instance, for this year, we received 1,138 nominations. And we screened them to a point that we have 100 and we have the first top 30. In this category, you discover that all of them are very exceptional persons, and they distinguish themselves in the kind of work they do and the kind of adherence to work ethics and conduct that they bring to the fore. So basically, our icons are top-notch. There are people who are committed to the work they do. There are people who are committed to transparency. There are people who are committed to serving their people right. There are people who are committed to righting the wrongs of the Nigerian public service, irrespective of the odds that adds up against them. Because I think it's imperative I mention this. We have a lot of these people who have been denied promotion for a very long time. Earlier on, Ibrahim Kirifi, who is here with us, told you that his office is in Yola. That transfer was orchestrated to be seen as a punitive measure for his doggedness against corrupt practices in his office. We have CSP Francis, who ordinarily should be a commissioner of police by now. He has been denied this promotion over and over and over and over again, yet he stands his grounds. I'm just bringing out these instances to show you the quality of persons that Accountability Lab names as icons, and to the extent to which, they're committed towards what they believe in and what they stand for.
Thank you very much. I would move to Comrade Ibrahim now. Being an integrity icon and based on what Mr. Mnenga just shared now about some of the pushback that you've had to experience, could you kindly go a little bit deeper? How did you fight this fight, and how have you been able to handle the pushback?
Honestly, as Mr. Shiva said, if you remember, I said, when you stand firm, there's always a consequence, or there are consequences. What Integrity Icon is doing, honestly, it has broadened the scope of the horizon of accountability in Nigeria. there's a responsibility. Individuals have their responsibility. Government has its own responsibility. International community has a responsibility to ensure that democracy is deepened. For instance, when Mr. Wade was having a rundown of the activities and Accountability Lab did and what they are planning to do, you see that in line with the globalization trend of deepening democracy, they are right on course. For instance, the issue of women empowerment in the National Assembly, ratio of women leadership, issue of disabled people, issue of open government partnership, inclusiveness in governance. All those are part of things that deepen democracy and democratic principles and processes. In our own case, as an individual, crowning me as an integrity icon has inspired hundreds of members of our union, of my office, which meant many people to be asking me, how are you chosen? How did they identify you? And I told them the manner in which these people do their work, you may not know. I never even knew they were following track of what I was doing. But the thing is that as you try to do the right thing, as I told you, there are consequences. Government agencies, people are really suffering under present government agencies, under MDS, under tyrannical chief executives. As you rightly said, I was transferred to Yola on punitive measure. Yes, not only me, 25 of my executive and those who have sympathy for the union were transferred to various state offices, including married women. Why? Because they stood behind me. And because I refused to agree to compromise on basic issues that pertain to staff welfare. And most of them were promises made by the chief executives. And when they were growing through the ladder, they uphold those things they are actually doing to our staff now. So the thing is that if you make up your mind to do the right thing, you don't need anybody to advise you. All you try to do is ensure that you do the needful, ensure that you gather the necessary materials needed for you to stand firm. But when you say no, let your no be no. And try to inspire those that are around you, because there's one thing that is involved in this thing. As a leader, you must make sure you mentor other people. Mentoring entails imparting your knowledge to those that are around you. Let them try to multiply yourself in the system in such a way that even in your absence, writing community, like I'm in Yola, but I'm happy people that have been mentoring are still doing the writing in the office. They are doing the writing, and this award that I received from Accountability Lab inspired many of them. Some are afraid of coming up openly to say it because the office is with those that are still with the union. But we do communicate. I used to tell them, continue doing the right thing. Even when no one is watching you, there's a day that you'll be recognized. And this kind of recognition is telling the world that yes, young people or I can say people that are doing the writing are being recognized by Accountability Lab and are being honored. And this serves as a means of encouraging other people to do the right thing. And one thing that they use to make it more participatory, or I can say the aggressive enlightenment strategy they employed by bringing in the voting system. Many people that never knew about Accountability Lab got to know it through that voting. So they say, what is this? What is happening? What is this? So by knowing it is happening, they also communicate and let other people know. Gradually, the aggressive enlightenment is getting wider acceptability, and people are getting to know what Accountability Lab is doing is empowering people and deepening democracy in the system. So by that, they are gradually helping the government indirectly, because when you have strong institutions that are fighting corruption, it's not, as you said, it's not that other countries are not having corrupt practices, but because they have strong institutions that fight corruption. And by strengthening this from the activities of like what Accountability Lab is doing now, where institutions are being strengthened, a leader will have no option than to follow the processes and to do the right thing. Even when a leader has corrupt tendencies, when the institutions are strong, the institution can fight the system, can help the leadership in fighting corruption with or without his own acceptance.
Thank you very much, sir. That was quite expository. Thank you very much. Mr. Nenga, I noticed that the lighting you're having issues with the lighting. You can actually turn off the video if you want to, or if it's fine, you can still stay on. I'd like to welcome Mr. Shewan Folani. He's the director of the Civic Media Lab. I don't know if you would have one or two questions to share before we start posting on the program for today.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed so far listening to everybody. I really don't have any questions. I really appreciate all the panelists and the good work that the people at Accountability Lab are doing. This is the first time I'm learning about the number of nominations that you get. And I'm really surprised. There's so many people that want to be recognized for doing the right thing. And that is encouraging, and we will always seek to support the work that Accountability Lab is doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I'll just like to take final notes from everyone. So, okay, Mr. Ode wants to say something.
I was just giving thumbs up to show. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'll come to Mr. Ibrahim, Comrade Ibrahim. What are your final notes? What would you like to share with Nigerians and the hope for the next years?
Yes, honestly, on the final note, I want to give an advice on how to help in fighting corruption in this system. One is that there's what is called target hardening approach. This target hardening approach is a penologist approach in handling crimes. People commit crimes because of two things. One, when there's a desire, and secondly, when there's an opportunity. So the government should try its best to see that first, if they block the desire, even if one has the opportunity to commit the crime, he will not do it. Or when there's a desire to commit the crime, when the ability to commit the crime has been blocked, you cannot be able to commit that crime. So when there's that, I'm calling for target hardening approach from the side of the government, sincerity from the side of the government, and then I'm also calling for capital punishment. Why? Because when people commit crimes and are being punished, it serves as a deterrence for others not to involve themselves in that kind of activity. And thirdly,
capital punishment.
Capital punishment, not the Korean.
All right, thank you very much, sir. I'll come to you, Mr. Nenga Shiwa. What would be your final notes?
Thank you. So, Mr. Ode Friday, that even if you give me an opportunity to leave Nigeria today, I'm not ready to go, because I want to be among the set of Nigerians that will sit back and make a country an envy of other countries or citizens from other countries. That is point number one. Point number two is the fact that Nigerians need to appreciate the fact that the task of making our system what we want it to be is a collective responsibility. At the level of individual citizens, we owe our society that obligation to ask questions. We owe the society that obligation to reject practices that we know are not adding up to the values of what we want to see. The third thing is for government to also appreciate the fact, in fact, those in government should appreciate the fact that they are vying for positions and taking appointed positions is for service. And the moment they are not able to deliver those services, then there are failures, and the system and the entire generation will not forget and forgive them. So these are key take home for us as citizens, as country, as government officials, and various tiers of government that we need to take very seriously. And our commitment at Accountability Lab to do the little within our bit is what we are resolved to do as staff of Accountability Lab, as the vision and mission of the organization at large. We are committed to this. And with the support of good citizens like Kirifi, CSP Francis, Dr. Igbola, and a host lot of others, we know that surely the destination, we one day get there. It may not actually take long. Thank you so much, and good evening, Nigerians.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mnengashiwa. Lastly, but not the least, of course, Mr. Ode, I'd like to hear your final notes, but specifically, I'd like you to talk about the ecosystem, the anti-corruption ecosystem, the media, the CSOs. Are we doing enough? What can we do better? What sort of support systems do we need? I'd like you to touch on that as you give your final notes.
Okay, thank you very much, Habib, once again. My feedback for that is we can't stop collaborating. Some people like, I know Sean has spoken a couple of times, and we've done some great work. I think collaboration for me is key. As Accountability Lab, we're always open to collaboration. So once you talk about the ecosystem, we want to see collaboration that spans beyond just media houses or just the anti-corruption agencies or civil society organizations, but how can we all forge that partnership to see that we are all delivering this one word or one message to Nigerians. So we are happy to see that if, for instance, set that pace with Accountability Lab and also Comrade Ibrahim, to see that I know the open government partnership seems to do this, but sometimes you find out standalones in terms of civil society organizations or civil society organizations and government, civil society organizations and private sector. We've also seen that replicate in itself where there's the competition model as well, where people are going out for grants and all that. So it brings you to see that people are we're fighting for one grant rather than going to collaborate and using our different strategies to achieving the same goal which all of us are working towards. But yes, we're happy to set that tone. Like I said, yeah. Sean and Habib, let's discuss further. If possible, let's see which other government organization we can put on board and also show what the outcomes can be around this. But however, I'm going to move on to my final words. I was just trying to look up, I think I saw that a while ago, but I'm not sure what the word is. The phrase "we the people" is the first statement in the Nigerian Constitution, 1999 as amended. It is the commencement of the preamble to the Constitution. A lot of controversies has even arisen as to what that actually means in its context. But however, I'm just saying this in retrospect to say that Nigerian citizens need to own up to the Nigerian Constitution. There's a saying that we don't need to major on the minor, but we need to minor on the major and all that back and forth. But we can't allow, what this means, we can't allow a handful of political rulers rule the people and define what this means for us. This also disenfranchises Nigerian citizens and causes that discouragement for people to participate in democratic processes. So I would like to encourage Nigerians to put up to that and stand up to what the Constitution says and hold their political leader or those in power to account. Secondly, I find it interesting that the pledge has now become just what we recite, just what anybody says. But I'm using this opportunity to call out to Nigerians. There are very keywords in the National Pledge. In recent times, we moved from the first stanza to the second stanza in meetings. And once people stand up to recite, I keep wondering what is going on here. Are we taking this to heart, or we're just saying it as it is? But the pledge says, I pledge to Nigeria, my country, to be faithful, loyal, and honest. Keyword, faithful, loyal, and honest. To serve Nigeria with all my strength. Once you look at the recent happenings in Nigeria, you wonder if this is the situation of things. If people are actually defending Nigerians' unity, or even causing disunity among citizens. To uphold our honor and glory, so help me God. This seems to be our prayer, but how do we now begin to put this to heart and actually live what this means? Like I said earlier in one of what I said earlier in one of my submissions, this for me when I was growing up was everything Nigeria means. Well, over the years, we are not even sure if people who join the public service or even the private sector, even a 10-year-old child, you don't even know what this means to them. So what does Nigeria actually mean to all of us when we say we the people, we the people, we the people? I think we should encourage ourselves to stand up to what this means. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that. I think that's like the biggest take home for this particular session. We should all go back to the National Pledge and try to uphold it. If every individual does that, I think that we will be a better people and will be a better country. Thank you very much, Comrade Ibrahim, Kirifi. Thank you very much, Mr. Mnenga Shiwa. Thank you very much, Mr. Friday Ode. And thank you very much, Mr. Shenwaki Folari. This is the Civic Media Lab Anti-Corruption Townhall series, and we'll be back next month for another episode in the series. Thank you very much, everyone. We hope to see you again soon.
Thank you very much, Habib, and thank you to your team for putting this wonderful program.